because we now have to leave the floor and welcome Agnieszka Piskorska on the relevance theoretic perspective on persuasion in food discourse.
Thank you so much. I'd like to share my screen, and I'm not sure because it seems like there's something else. Okay. So the topic of my presentation is relevance theoretic perspective on persuasion in food discourse, and well, it's a relevance theoretic perspective is kind of obvious, so I shortened the title to persuasion in food discourse. So the goals of my talk are two. The first one is to discuss various persuasive techniques used in food discourse, and the other one is to examine the persuasive potential of implicated premises in social campaigns promoting plant-based diets. As I will explain in a minute, the idea of implicated premises as carrying some persuasive messages comes from the paper by Sperber et al. Titled Epistemic Vigilance. Okay. So the plan of the presentation, I will give you some justification why I'm dealing with food discourse at all. I will talk about routes to persuasion and biases in reasoning. I will briefly do some overview of these notions. Then I will share some examples of persuasive messages used in food discourse, and I will present to you my mini empirical study on the use of culturally shared assumptions as implicated premises in promoting a plant-based diet. So, as I said, I owe you a justification why I chose food discourse as a topic of my presentation. And actually what I'm sharing with you is also some kind of a disclaimer that I'm not speaking here as a nutritionist. I'm not speaking as an environmentalist or an activist. I'm doing a pragmatic analysis, but also on the other hand, as premises for my research, I'm taking some statements or some findings which were actually obtained by scientists examining the impact of various diets on the environment or on individuals. So I presume that these findings are valid and they somehow they are at the background of my research. So what are these findings? So according to a recent study, plant-based diets are better for the environment than meat-based diets, since plants require less resources. Here I'm referring to this source. This is a very detailed study which was, compared to previous studies, it was rated as very reliable. Also, other findings: healthy plant-based diets are better for people than unhealthy plant diets. What is normally meant by this is like, eating fruit and vegetables is better than for an individual's health than eating sweets, for instance, which are also plant-based, sugar. So governments may be interested in promoting certain diets which are more or less plant-based, or they may be interested in promoting a shift in habits towards plant-oriented eating habits in the long run in the population scale. And I'll be talking about persuasion in this sense, not persuading individuals, but like creating social campaigns in a similar fashion that let's say governments or other organizations promote not smoking or not drinking alcohol or similar habits. Okay, a very important observation is that habits are rather difficult to change, and very often overt attempts to change habits may backfire. As an example, I would like to share with you when the mayor of Warsaw expressed his concern in maybe the excessive consumption of meat is something that should change, and people should switch towards more plant-based diets. He was accused by right-wing press of being that he wants to introduce some kind of a regime. He's infringing on human rights, and he will probably end up forcing people to eat worms, and similar accusations were directed against him. So it's not an easy thing to encourage people to think about a possible change. Okay, so on my next slide, I would like to share with you this image. And actually, I'm taking my inspiration here from Ryoko's paper that she delivered in last year's conference in Seville. I mean, just the distinction was inspired by Ryoko's talk, that very often, like food as a topic, as a discourse, is approached from two different perspectives. So either food as pleasure or food as nutrition or a set of nutrients. And it's not so difficult to observe that actually this pleasure perspective on food is very often taken when is very often associated with not necessarily, healthy diet or sustainable diet, right? So whenever we talk about enjoyment, enjoying food, or tradition, or social aspects of eating, it's typically illustrated with the kind of food which is not typically thought of as healthy. On the other hand, healthy, sustainable is more often than not associated with the nutrition value and how important for your health it is to eat healthy dishes or fruits and vegetables. So this much we can simply observe. Now, why is this idea of promoting healthy, sustainable diets in terms of nutrition, why is it not successful or largely ineffective? Because we could think, okay, when people learn how good it is for you to eat fruit and vegetables, they will switch to fruit and vegetables immediately because it's simply good for you. But it's not like this. So one of the answers, as I mentioned previously, I would like to mention some research on persuasion, including early research. So one of the possible answers to this question, why is direct persuasion very often ineffective, it was provided by Petty and Cacioppo in the 1980s. They came up with this elaboration likelihood model, according to which there are two routes to persuasion. So the rational route, we can say that the hearer response to the logos, to the actually content of the message, is the rational route. And the other, the emotional route, is less predictable. The hearer responds to the pathos, to some other qualities of the message, not the content, not the rational argument itself, but what kind of emotions are induced and so on. This model definitely explains the complexity of persuasion, but it doesn't make a lot of predictions which route will be the most effective. Okay, just moving on. I will not talk about biases in reasoning extensively, but we are familiar with such notions as confirmation bias, famously discussed in communication studies, and there are a lot of other biases which also affect the ultimate outcome of persuasion, which sound arguments may fail very often due to these biases. Now, in their 2010 paper, Epistemic Vigilance, Sperber et al. Discuss a very well-known example, which is drawn from Grice originally. And this example is this. So the conversation between Andy and Barbara is going on, and Andy mentions something about Steve. Steve doesn't seem to have a girlfriend these days, to which Barbara replies, he's been paying a lot of visits to New York lately. And so I've got this quote from the paper saying that Andy's statement implicates culturally shared assumptions about what is to be expected of a bachelor like Steve, without which his remark would not be relevant in the intended way. Many cultural assumptions are distributed in this way, not so much, or in some cases not at all, by being directly asserted, but by being used as implicit premises in a vast number of communicative acts, such as Andy's utterance. Now, what is the relevance of this passage to my subject? Actually, Sperber et al. Predicts that there is a possibility of reinforcing certain cultural assumptions, not by directly asserting them. As we could see, an attempt to directly assert a proposition very often fails in terms of its persuasive effects, but by simply communicating them as implicated premises. When it comes to this route of persuasion, let's call it this way, Sperber et al. Predicts that there are two reasons why it works. One reason is that the mechanism of epistemic vigilance is primarily oriented towards explicit messages and implicated conclusions, not towards implicated premises. And the second reason is that assumptions shared by a culture are not easily rejected or questioned due to its being shared, because the humans have a need to belong. So when something is shared in a culture, it's just in itself is a reason to accept it. Okay, and I would like to share with you some examples how such implicated premises are very often present in food discourse. So for the first part of my presentation, I will concentrate on food discourse in its like a meat eating section. Okay, so this is my first example, and a tour guide in Spain, talking, it was actually an authentic example. A tour guide in Seville says that the Spanish breakfast is a toast with ham and a glass of juice. Okay, so explaining that actually the inhabitants of Seville do not eat oranges, because what they eat for breakfast, the oranges that grow in Seville are not eaten, because what they have for breakfast is a toast with ham. I'm not claiming here that the tour guide has any intention, any persuasive intention, but this statement by itself is based on a implicated premise that eating toast with ham is a done thing. This is what people do. So it kind of reinforces this assumption. Quite often, it is used more deliberately, with a more deliberate intention to persuasive intention, or in advertising. Okay, so I will just go quickly through this set of slides presenting examples. So ham lovers, we are a community. This is actually an advertisement of cold cuts by a Polish producer using such words as homely or homemade, and using a lot of diminutives to name the types of cold cuts. I'm not sure if there is an equivalent for this Valeron thing. So this creates this emotional reaction and works on this level of implicated premise that this is something like a tradition shirt thing. Okay, one more example of using diminutives. This is homemade lard. Or appeal to tradition and the olden times. Imagine a village, there were no cars, horses, wooden houses, blah, blah, blah. And, this kind of strategy. I'm speeding up a little bit. On the other hand, so like normalizing the perception of animals as just pieces or just cuts of meat. So I think this works via metonymy. So this is like subjectification of animals. Or another example would be this. Okay, I think I will skip these two slides and I will go to this one. Sometimes this kind of, persuasion via implicated premises is not fully consistent, because here you have an image which is completely incoherent. So we have a chicken who the chicken is portrayed as a footballer, and at the same time the chicken is advertising a ham made of chicken. But somehow, as was said, the epistemic vigilance maybe is not that vigilant when it comes to those background assumptions. So the question is it possible to deploy this kind of cultural information, which I think is very rarely deployed, to promote plant-based diets? In order to test this, I carried a small-scale empirical study based on a questionnaire. There were 6 questions, 3 of them were fillers and 3 of them were real study questions. And the questions were aimed to test the acceptability of various scenarios, including assumptions related to plant-based diet. And I also collected some information about the respondents, their age, and the favorite food, because I wanted to eliminate. So if somebody overtly said that they were vegans or vegetarians, so their responses would not count very much as valid. Okay, so I collected 30 responses in this mini study, and here's the first question. So it's like, you were invited to a housewarming party, your new neighbor, who happens to be your childhood pal, and she's cooking the party food. She shared with the invitees that she's preparing a vegetable stew and an egg-free chocolate cake. Would you accept the invitation? Okay, so you can see the respondents chose answers from 1 to 5 on a Likert scale, and it was like from definitely not to definitely yes, or definitely no to definitely yes. And we can see that the majority of respondents would accept the invitation. The next question is a little bit longer. The idea was whether the respondents would sort of accept the idea of watching a comedy series in which the main protagonist cooks vegetarian meals because he owns 2 cats and the cats eat off his plate, so he tries vegetarian meals to prevent their cats from eating his food. But there were also other details added about this character. Here, I think the answers are, well, as you can see, at least inconclusive, but like it seems that the majority of respondents did not accept this idea. So moving to question 3, it's about the book, Babe the Gallant Pig, an intelligent little pig who was adopted by a farmer, and she was befriended by the farm shepherd dog. So in other words, that this is about an anthropomorphized figure of a pig that acts very much like a human. And the question is, would you like to buy this book as a present for a child who likes reading? In other words, do you accept this perspective of looking at animals? And the majority of respondents, as you can see, accepted this idea. Now, I will skip the fillers, and I will just briefly talk about the results and conclusions. This is my last slide, actually. So the study indicates that the majority of participants are open to the idea of vegetarian food at a party. It's 26 out of 30, 4 or 5 points. And they are also open to the idea of a book with an anthropomorphized pig character. 23 replies, 4 or 5 points. The participant did not seem to accept the idea of a comedy series hero eating vegetarian food, but it is not clear what they disliked about this character, because the description was, more information was given, right? So what they actually didn't like. The study shows some potential of testing the acceptability of culturally less popular assumptions used as implicated premises, and maybe reapplied on a larger number of participants. But definitely some questions will, the question number 2 will have to be redesigned, maybe to elicit more reliable results. So I'd like to emphasize that this is work in progress, and you know, I just wanted to share with you this sort of initial take and initial idea, and I'll be happy to you know, get some remarks on the very idea, on the design of the study. It was just a pilot, and I just don't know myself whether you know, it's leading somewhere or not. Okay, so thank you so much, and this is my list of references.
Thank you very much, Agnieszka. Thank you very much for the talk. If anyone has questions, you can raise your hands. Yes, Ryoko.
Thank you, Agnieszka. It was really interesting. I might have missed some parts. Again, I was in between 2 or 3 rooms, but you know, when I was looking at your questionnaire, and when you talk about heroes and so on, it might depend on how that is illustrated using images as well. And a lot of examples you gave had certain type of image, like, you know, your ham and sausages are put onto the like wooden board, but always had some green on it, for example, or the ham packaging had again some sort of non-verbal image-based input. Just wondered if people's perception or reaction to your question might change if there are any pictures attached or accompanying the text.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. That's a brilliant idea. I was sort of, you know, like rushing in this part of bad planning, of course, on my part. But you know, so the description of this protagonist included some information that, like, he got a job and he's not very good at this job, because there was the idea of when testing the role of implicated premises, you cannot just focus on this single aspect of this hero, right? Then it's very apparent that it's about what he eats. And but I think this is a very helpful remark. Thank you. I will try to use it, because maybe, like, you know, just not using a verbal description, but like an image might help. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, Fabrizio.
Thank you, Agnieszka. Really interesting. It just reminded me of how important, as Ryoko was saying as well, non-verbal elements are as well. you know, it's hard, and you know, I find it hard as well to carry out a multimodal kind of analysis. It would be amazing to do it on interpreting, but it's not easy to transcribe this stuff multimodally, as you know. But I was just, you know, off the top of my head, I was thinking it would be amazing to have, you know, like eye tracking sensors like you do for translation as well, measuring, you know, a user's gaze position on a computer screen if you're using images as well. I know it's a very boring and then long-winded way of analyzing data, but when you're doing, you know, analysis of translations or anything to do with image as well, if there's a way of doing anything multimodal and gaze-based, I think it's worth the shot. Just off the top of my head, actually.
Yeah, thank you so much. Right, that I would have to think about how to actually use the you know, eye tracking. Hara says it's a brilliant idea. So just sharing this with you, Fabrizio, because I'm not sure you're following the chat, right? But definitely yes, because it's about sort of how people respond on a certain level, which can't be brought to the fore of the attention so much, right? Because otherwise it loses the point of being sort of communicated in a not such an overt way. And definitely eye tracking is like a good tool, yeah, that can measure responses. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Are there some more questions, or should we end the session now and take a little break? Okay, perfect. So I let Hugo stop the...
Great, thank you. So thank you again to all.
Thank you there for sharing.
We will adjourn for 15
Ryoko, I'm staying on.
Are you staying on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the next session starts at 2:15 UK time, so you have 15 minutes break.
Oh, great. So
yeah,
are you going to make me co-host the...
Because yes, you are presenting.
I'm going to be chairing
next.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will make you co-host, which you already are.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll take a break.
Yeah, you take a break, and I think everyone should take a break now anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you later.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you. See you later.
Thanks, Jill. Bye-bye.